Cancer's gift of rebirth and reawakening. Geri Maroney, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Oscar and Misako and Tim, for the opportunity to speak today. I really love that you are supporting the Storytellers platform, because I think that there's so many things that we can learn from one another through storytelling. So thank you very much for the opportunity. As Oscar said, my name is Geri Maroney, and I am a cancer survivor. The title of my speech today is Cancer's Gifts of Rebirth and Reawakening. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I felt like there were lessons that I might need to learn during that burden. I decided early on to sort of stay open and let myself hear those lessons. I just didn't know there'd be so many. I learned really hard lessons about control, trust, forgiveness, and self-determination. We all know that cancer sucks. There are a lot of really crappy things about cancer. But what I hated the most was the cruel and extreme way that cancer ripped away my identity. One day I was fine, healthy, successful, working hard, skipping through my life, well, on some days. And the next day I was thrown into a very dark storm that would take me a long time to recover from. My slogan for today's talk is big and brave. And those 3 words would be my mantra throughout my journey. And I leaned on those words often. After many months of receiving the diagnosis, going through blood tests, doctor's tests, family discussions, and self-reflection, I had finally reached surgery day. In some ways, I was excited to be at this point, but in others, I was absolutely terrified. My surgery would be a 14-hour surgery that required a team of 3 doctors. 1 would remove the cancer, and 2 would rebuild my body. I was more afraid to be under anesthesia for 14 hours than I was the actual removal of the surgery. But I was ready to go, and we had reached the big day. I'd arrived at the hospital at 5 a.m., according to my pre-surgery instructions. I was checked in, had gone through the process, changed into my lovely blue robe and my white skid-proof socks, and I was waiting for my turn, laying in the bed, waiting to go. When suddenly, the power went out. Like, I kid you not, the entire floor of the hospital went dark. This terrified me. I thought it was God telling me, no, don't do it. This is a bad idea. You shouldn't go through with this surgery. Something bad is going to happen. But of course, I couldn't stop. We had to move forward. If I could have gotten out of that bed and to my car in the parking lot without someone chasing me, you can bet I would have tried. But we were ready to go. Within a few minutes, the power came back on. And my surgeon stuck his head in my little waiting area from around the curtain and said, everything's great. We're fine now. We're 15 minutes away from surgery. That terrified me even more, like sent me into an absolute panic attack. I was still recovering from the fact that the lights just went out. And now I needed to gather my strength. So I closed my eyes and really tried to shut everything out. I focused on a story of when my girls were little. They would come home from school and be crying about something, that someone was mean to them, or they didn't make the sports team, or they did bad on a test, or whatever it was. And I would always tell them they needed to be big and brave, that they had more strength and courage in their heart than they thought they did, and that they could get through this if they just were big and brave. That was the lesson that washed over me while I sat in my bed. I had to be big and brave. Now it was my lesson. No one on earth could take this burden from me. I was 15 minutes away, and I had to get myself through this. I didn't want to go under anesthesia, terrified. So I promised to be big and brave. 14 hours later, I woke up in ICU. The surgery had gone well, and I would spend 4 days in ICU and then 2 additional days in a regular room. And then I was released to go home. I'd never been so happy to go home. I had 4 drains in my body and a bag full of pain meds, but I was ready to go home and happy to be getting this next step of healing. Fast forward about 6 weeks, and all of a sudden I had fear, anger, sadness, and dread, like overwhelming. My doctor had told me that this might happen sometime after surgery, and I had seen him a few appointments before this, and he kept asking me questions like, was I sad? Was I mad? Did I want to hurt myself? Did I want to hurt someone else? And I thought, but no, that's silly. I'm trying to heal from cancer. I just know that's silly. Well, it wasn't silly. That day, I knew what he was talking about. It was PTSD. And it hit me hard. I honestly didn't think I had the emotional strength to fight this new monster. I had just spent all my energy fighting cancer. And now I had to fight a new monster. But a friend of mine gave me some excellent advice. She told me that PTSD wasn't a monster. It was just a shadow. This was just one more step in my race to warrior status. And she was right. Her words gave me the incentive to go on. I was a warrior, and I deserved to finish the race with warrior status. I didn't just survive a 14-hour surgery to have PTSD knock me down. So I slowed down. I gave myself more time to heal, more time to manage the emotional issues. Cancer is very much a physical and emotional journey. I would some days take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but that was okay. At least I was making progress. And I tried really hard to get my life back to normal. So some time had passed and I needed to take a business trip. So I woke up that morning and I was sort of annoyed that I even had to do it, but I told myself, be positive and stay open to what the world might bring you today. So I got on my way, went to the airport and started my trip. And when I travel, I don't really pay a lot of attention to those around me. I'm not really talky. I just kind of want to get it done. So I'd gotten to the airport, cleared security, went down the escalator and was waiting for the train to take us to the terminals. When I see this lady off to my right, this older lady, and I see her kind of weaving through and pushing her way through the other people that are standing there until she gets right next to me. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe she thinks I'm someone else, that she knows me. So the train comes, the doors open, and I go to the back of the last car, which is where I always go, and I stand there, and she followed me, like almost shoulder to shoulder. And I'm like, I remember thinking, roll back, honey. There's a lot of room on the train. You don't have to stand right next to me. But she did, and I wasn't making eye contact. So a few moments passed, and then suddenly she spoke, and she asked me how my day was going. And I said, it was going great. How about hers? And she was so excited. She told me the story that she was on her way to see her daughter, who she hadn't spoken to in years because anger had broke their relationship. Over time, something had happened and they hadn't spoken in years. And then suddenly the daughter called her out of the blue and invited her to attend this very special celebration. She was so excited. Then she leaned over, touched my arm and said, don't let anger build up in your life. Don't let it take the joy from you. Forgive others and forgive yourself. She was excited. I was stunned. I had tears in my eyes. And I thought back to the words that I had said to myself earlier in the morning about being open to what might happen. The train arrived to the terminal, and I had to get off. She was staying on. So I got off the train and then looked back at her after I was sort of headed towards the escalator. And I could see her like there was a spotlight on her. She was smiling and waving at me like we had been lifelong friends. I waved back to her and turned, wiped my tears, and started my journey. That was so cool. I thought about that stranger all day, and I still think about her now, 5 years later. I didn't know her name, but I can see her face, and I can hear her words. Don't let anger build up. Don't let it take joy from your life. Forgive yourself and forgive others. What a beautiful gift that was. It still gives me goosebumps. It was such an important lesson for me to learn that day. I had let anger consume me, and this beautiful stranger found a way to bring me back to center. I was thankful she was my angel. These are 2 examples of the gifts that cancer gave me. I share many more of my stories in my book titled Beautiful Lady, as I work to provide support and encouragement to my fellow pink sisters fighting their own cancer battle. No one should fight that battle alone. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that I've inspired you to be big and brave and to keep your eyes open for the angels around us. Thank you.